Thank you, Madam Speaker. And again, I want to thank my honorable colleague for having put forward this bill. Rarely has a date ever been so apt to debate legislation. This evening is the beginning of Yom HaShoah. Yom HaShoah is a sacred day. It's a day where we remember with reverence the over 6 million Jews who were slaughtered by the Nazis in the Holocaust. It's a day where we remember all of the victims of the Holocaust, regardless of their origin, whether from the LGBTQ+ community, whether from the Roma community, or whether from any other community. It's a day where we honor the survivors, including those many survivors that came to make their homes in cities like Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, and Winnipeg. It's a day where we thank the rescuers, those people who were righteous Gentiles who risked their lives to save others. It's a day where we remember atrocities, and it's a day where it is totally appropriate to talk about how we prevent this from ever happening again. On Monday, I had the incredible honor of standing there with my friend from Thornhill and my friend from Esquimalt-Saanich at the B'nai B'rith press conference, where they brought forward their audit of anti-Semitic incidents for last year. And as my friend from Saskatoon mentioned, there was yet another increase from multiple successive years in incidents. Many, many more violent incidents. Many, many more threatening incidents. Dans ma province du Québec, il y avait une augmentation importante des incidents d'antisémitisme. In British Columbia, there was an important increase in anti-Semitic incidents. And we as a country need to confront why this is happening. Last spring, in the month of May, was a time that many of these incidents happened. And why was that? It was a flare-up of the war or the incidents or the violence where the state of Israel was attacked by Hamas, a terrorist organization under Canadian law. And yet, for whatever reason, that turned into anti-Semitism here in Canada. It turned into rock throwing in Montreal. It turned into a time where I had families in my riding that were scared to let their children go to the park because they were afraid that somebody would see them wearing a kippah and would attack their child. C'était un mois où il y avait des survivants de l'Holocauste dans mon comté qui sont venus me voir pour me demander est-ce qu'ils devraient enlever le mezouza, qui est le symbole juif, de leur porte, parce qu'ils ne voulaient pas que quelqu'un va savoir qu'ils sont juifs. Jamais de ma vie est-ce que je croyais que quelque chose comme ça arriverait à Montréal, au Québec, au Canada. Incroyable. This is 262 years since the Jewish community has been in Canada. We've contributed so much to this country in every facet, in politics, in the judiciary, in the arts, in sports, in the military. We are not victims. Canadian Jews are not victims. Canadian Jews are strong and proud. But it is unacceptable that in a great country like ours, we have incidents of Holocaust denial and anti-Semitism. One of the things that makes me very proud is when there are international polls about anti-Semitism in Canada, Canada always ranks amongst one of the lowest countries in the incidence of anti-Semitism. Only about 8 or 9% of Canadians are anti-Semitic versus many much more percentages in other countries. And last week, when Angus Reid did a poll about how people perceived different religious communities in Canada, the Jewish community finished as the most favorable. So how is it that with so few anti-Semites in this country, that 61% of religious hate crimes in this country are against Jews, when we make up only 1.25% of the population? Il y a quelque chose qui ne va pas là. From the protocols of the Elders of Zion through to disinformation online today, for some crazy reason, Jews are always the first victims, but never the last. Somebody who's capable of disliking Jews is capable of disliking people because they're part of any group. Et on connaît que peut-être ça va commencer avec des Juifs, mais ça ne va pas arrêter avec les Juifs. Nous sommes tous là pour essayer de voir qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire dans notre société pour combattre non seulement l'antisémitisme, mais le racisme, la francophobie, tous les différents types de racisme dans notre société. L'éducation, première. Mais l'éducation ne suffit pas des fois. I always believe that we err on free speech. We always try to make sure that we don't unreasonably take away someone's right to say something. But it is clear from all kinds of evidence that denial of the Holocaust, that minimization of the Holocaust is actually one of the most effective tools for increasing anti-Semitism and directing hatred and violence against Jews. Our Constitution is clear. While freedom of speech is an incredibly important right protected under Section 2 of the Canadian Charter, et aussi dans la Charte du Québec et dans plusieurs autres chartes dans ce pays, we, under Section 1, have a right to place reasonable limits on freedom of speech. And hate speech is not necessarily free speech. The courts in Canada have determined that we are allowed to prevent people from inciting genocide, from inciting hatred against identifiable groups. Today, when you go online and you look at Holocaust denial on all of the platforms, it is but a start of where you go when you start hating Jews. And so I support this bill, or whatever frame this bill takes, because it is so important to not allow people in Canada to minimize, to deny the Holocaust. It is a historical truth. It is not a subject for debate. Someone who claims that 6 million Jews did not die in the Holocaust doesn't know what they're talking about. It happened. Et aujourd'hui, nous avons tous un devoir ici dans le Parlement. Nous sommes tous unis, dans n'importe quel parti politique, qu'on ne veut pas d'avoir l'antisémitisme, le racisme, l'homophobie, n'importe quel type de discrimination au Canada. Peut-être nous ne sommes pas toujours d'accord dans la manière de confronter cela, mais on est d'accord que ça ne devrait pas exister. Et je crois que quand vous regardez la question de nier l'Holocauste, c'est une des places où peut-être on peut unanimement convenir que c'est quelque chose qui est tellement grave, qui cause tellement de la haine, qu'on devrait l'interdire. I would like to finish this by adding one other thing. Yom HaShoah comes on the eve of Yom HaAtzmaut. Yom HaAtzmaut is Israel Independence Day. It happens next week. And in Canada, part of the hate comes from the extreme right, and part of the hate comes from the extreme left. Nobody has a monopoly on it. Everybody could be part of it. But one of the things that I have seen, and one of the things that I am the most afraid of, is where somebody denies the existence of the hate of Israel, hates on the state of Israel, it leads to anti-Semitism against Jews in Canada. Israel is a democratic country, the only Jewish minority state in the world. It has a right to exist. It has a right to exist behind secure borders. And I really, really hope that we can also join together, in addition to condemning anti-Semitism, to agreeing that BDS and all forms of Israel Apartheid Week and all forms of heinous attacks against Jewish students on campus, all the places that hate of Israel leads, should also not be existing in this country. So I thank my friend from Saskatoon. He has brought forward an important issue that we all need to work together to confront. Merci, Madame la Présidente.